What's the most spectacular way you've seen Arrogance destroy millions in profits? I spent almost 2 decades volunteering with a small non-profit service club. There were only about a dozen of us, and for the most part, we didn't do much besides hang out, volunteer for other charities, and hand out oversized presentation checks. Our big thing was a licensed fundraiser, basically a legal gambling system, that brought in about $1.5 million a year. It was simple, steady, and enough to keep everyone happy. In 2019, the club fired one of the 2 employees who managed the fundraiser. To fill the gap, I agreed to step in as a contractor for 3 months at $25 an hour, just until they found a replacement. My plan wasn't to get rich. I originally wanted to help for free, but I quickly realized the system was outdated. I started making adjustments, streamlining operations, improving processes, and updating things that hadn't been touched in years. Within 9 months, our annual sales shot from $1.5 million to $8 million. Then COVID hit, and while most charities were collapsing, I dug in deeper. I overhauled everything from the ground up, built a system that could handle lockdowns, and found ways to make the fundraiser thrive when most people assumed it would fail. The result? $15 million in sales in just 6 months. That was $10 million in net profit, more money than this little club had ever dreamed of. Of course, that kind of growth didn't come for free. I was working 50 to 60 hours a week, sometimes more, keeping the whole thing afloat. The club kept asking me to submit invoices, but I brushed it off. I wasn't motivated by the money. Finally, after 15 months, they insisted. I sent them a heavily discounted invoice, $52,000 for over a year of work. That was less than a fraction of what I could have billed at my actual hours and rate. They paid it, but instead of gratitude, I got hostility. Suddenly, I was accused of greed, fraud, and incompetence. This, coming from people who were using the charity's funds to host gala dinners, play golf with community elites, and make massive donations that just happened to benefit their own careers. Their arrogance and hypocrisy were staggering. I should have left right then, but I stayed out of loyalty. Loyalty to the 2 dozen staff who depended on me, and loyalty to the charities I'd been tied to for decades. Still, the constant pressure and accusations wore me down, and by the end of 2021, I finally walked away. Before leaving, I had been working on a 2-part redesign of the fundraiser to handle the explosive growth. The first part took months to prepare and was already in motion. The second part was simple to implement once the first was complete, but they were designed to balance each other out. Without both, the whole system would collapse. I explained this, but once again, the club accused me of being incompetent. They said I didn't understand the consequences of the changes. At that point, I stopped arguing. I finished the first half, something they had already approved, and then I left. They never let me put the second half in place, and just as I predicted, it all came crashing down. A year later, the fundraiser was in shambles. Sales dropped to under $2 million, but they still had massive expenses and a patched-together system they didn't understand. Instead of raising money, they were bleeding it. All of the progress we had built, the growth, the profits, the stability, vanished in less than a year. Now they're pointing fingers at me, claiming I sabotaged them and never explained the importance of the second half of the plan. But the truth is, I did. They just didn't listen. And when I returned my work laptop, they told me to hand it back in original condition. So I wiped everything. Every file, every plan, every detailed system I had built, gone forever. This was an organization that had the potential to bring in $10 million a year in profit for charities, enough to make a massive difference in the community. But their arrogance, greed, and inability to listen destroyed it all. They didn't lose because of me. They lost because they refused to believe anyone but themselves could be right. And that decision cost them everything.